need to come clean about some things. Well, hello friends, I'm Mary Beth with At What Cost, where simple living and deep faith go hand in hand. And today I'm totally using a fishing metaphor. So just buckle up because it's gonna make sense in the end. Just trust me. It's probably gonna make sense before the end, but let's get started. So my husband loves to fish and I enjoy spending time with my husband. So occasionally, we don't do it much anymore, but we used to go fishing together and it never fails. I would at some point have what's called a bird's nest. And if you are any type of fisher person, you know exactly what that is. The fishing line crosses over itself rapidly, and it's really easy to happen and really difficult to tease out. In most cases, it can be done, and sometimes you just have to cut the line off and start fresh. But the issue here is that the fishing line, the thing that's supposed to help us get to our end result of actually catching a fish, just goes into complete chaos, and we have to sort things out. And these are the spaces that, they've gone from, wow, we need to clean up, to there appears to have been a struggle. Yes, these are the places that we want to tackle. And oftentimes that means just being completely ruthless in our decluttering. And I've got lots of videos on decluttering pretty much every room in our house. I can link to those at the end of this video, but I need to come clean about some things. So July was a pretty rough month for us. Between vacation and having to quarantine and back to school, emotions running high, maintenance kind of went out the window. And it shows. I have been spending time in our home a lot of time lately. And I started to get that same kind of feeling that I had 2 years ago when I realized something in our house was way off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I knew that something was not quite right, but I just couldn't even really recognize what it was until I got a new perspective on an old way of thinking, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But I started to realize that I kind of need to go back to the basics. When maintenance goes out the window, it's like it leaves the window open and a bunch of other stuff comes back in. And that's exactly what's happened. I have not been diligent in my gatekeeping of our home, and things are starting to pile up again. And it has been so frustrating, not really knowing why I felt so unsettled in our home was, unsettling. I want to feel comfortable in our house. I want our kids to feel comfortable in our house. So with maintenance going out the window, well, that mess has crept back in and our house is starting to feel a little like that bird's nest, which has been a good lesson in why maintenance is so important. Just like that bird's nest, clutter is easy to come by and sometimes difficult to clear out. It's not impossible. It just may mean that we need to go back into some areas and clear out a few more things than we'd like to. And to be fair, it may sometimes feel like we're starting all over again, but trust me, when I go back and look at those pictures from 2 years ago, I'm not starting over. We still have a lot less stuff than when we ever had, and I think I've kind of gone from that stage of feeling incredibly overwhelmed, having that kind of clutter paralysis, to really being prepared to tackle it and maintain it. Sometimes we have to take a step backwards to realize that it's okay for us to take a few steps forward. We've done it before and we can do it again. Now, I am almost 100% certain that you are familiar with the concept of maintenance. We do this with our cars, getting our tires rotated, changing the oil, taking it in for service when the check engine light comes on. We would do this in our homes with changing the furnace filters. We wouldn't just leave those things undone because we understand that there is great value in taking care of those things along the way. So why would we not do this when it comes to the things in our home? I mean, there's a number of reasons we would not do this. We clearly have all ended up in this spot for pretty much the same reason, because we weren't doing this. And I don't think we need to hash out again how all of this stuff got into our home. Our resources are way better focused on figuring out the best way to keep it out. I just want to keep it out. This is where carving out a few minutes every day to just deal with that kind of like mindless clutter. You know what I'm talking about. The extra papers that came home from school that you don't actually need, the junk mail, the kitchen utensils you're not using, that appliance that you just discovered in the back of the cabinet looking for something else. You know you're not using it, and you can very easily get it out of your home. Doing a few minutes of that kind of like mindless decluttering can really go a long way. I'm not talking about handling the hard stuff. I don't think it's healthy for us to do that every day. And most of the time, the more difficult things like sentimental items or even books, maybe even sometimes our clothes, need to really be reserved for those days when we have a lot of decluttering energy. Not motivation, because we may not ever feel motivated to declutter, but we may just have a little bit higher bandwidth to be able to handle some of those things. The mindless decluttering that we can do is what's really going to make a difference in our day-to-day feeling in our home. Now, I am not about to make 1,000,001 trips to the donation centers as I just kind of pull these random things that I come across in our home out. What I am going to do is have a donation bin that has a specific home in our house, and I can put things that need to be donated in that bin. Now, this is different than a quarantine bin or a time will tell bin or whatever word you want to call the bin where you put things to determine whether or not you actually need them. This is different than that. This is something that you know, if you put it in that bin, when you go to the recycling center or the donation center or wherever, it's gone. And that has kind of, I think, contributed to these like little micro messes that I have all over my house. So I haven't really been great about maintaining that donation bin. In fact, I kind of set it down somewhere and it got full and I didn't ever take it because, well, things got hard. And then a bunch of other stuff just kind of piled up around it. So making time to actually take that stuff to the donation center is really going to help get the ball rolling and get some of this other stuff out of my home. Because ultimately, clutter attracts more clutter. Even if it's clutter that you have already decided you're going to part ways with, if it continues to stay in your home, there's a good chance it's going to attract some more clutter. And here's the thing about decluttering. Like, we know that the best thing for us to do when we finish decluttering a space is to put it in our car and take it right then. But I think it's important to recognize that that doesn't always happen for us every time, and it's okay. The great thing about decluttering is when we do actually make it to the donation center, like, we're done. When we come home, it's going to be different, and that's a good thing. This is definitely an instant gratification kind of process. Now, the other thing that you need is grace. Seriously, you need grace. This is a hard process. This is a marathon and not a sprint. Now, I was recently reminded of a verse that really was pivotal in my initial mind shift when it came to decluttering our home way back like 2 years ago when this process started. And it was John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. What we see here is a constant battle to get us flustered and keep us distracted, doing other stuff that really prevents us from seeking the Lord and His will. But I was also reminded so many times when God is speaking to His people, it really starts with kind of a reminder of what the Lord has done. If you dig through scripture, just in, let's say, the book of Joshua, we just had a speaker at our church and it was so life-giving. She covered Joshua 1 through 9. And if you go through that text, look at the number of times that God says things like, I will, I have, I am. Like, He is definitely reminding us that He has gone before us, He will do those things, and that He is with us as we go about our day-to-day life. I don't have to go this alone, and neither do you. I would love, if you have not yet subscribed, for you to do that. Consider joining our Bible study group if you'd like to take your study just a little bit deeper. That button is right next to the subscribe button, and you can get all the information there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.